Do 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 do. I need to be sure that my feedback here is muted so I don't hear myself. We should be live, I think. Let's see. There's a delay usually, so yeah, we are live. Perfect. Everything works.
Live as shit.
Yeah, we're as live as fucking. We
Live as
couldn't
shit
be,
and live as balls.
dude. We couldn't be more live. Why do I have a? Yeah, there we go. I don't need that Learn Squared overlay here. It's Art Cafe after all.
It's true.
It's true, man. It's true. How's it going, dude?
Good.
We haven't spoken a while. It's
It
been
has been a while.
yeah, it's
Next
been a
time,
long time.
I'm gonna be out in whatchamacallit. I'm gonna be out in LA in October, and I'm gonna frickin' get you to goddamn come out to something.
No, we have to do something together when
Get
you're
you to
here.
goddamn get out of your
Dude,
fucking apartment.
I'll make sure I'll move my potato ass out of home.
Quit fucking with your goddamn bumblebees.
I will quit fucking with Bumblebee. You know, I promise you that. I won't fuck the Bumblebee anymore. And yeah, we'll definitely plan and do something together. We have to. I mean, dude, I need to meet your beautiful face, like in face. I need to see all those, wrinkles of fatherhood.
Yep.
Dude,
It takes its toll.
it does. You have two kids, right?
Two, yep. 2 and 4.
Damn.
So yeah,
Mine
it's
is
an
3. It's
interesting.
like right in between.
Yep. They're definitely. It's a interesting age, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I'm learning. I'm learning all the
Yeah.
time, getting an idea what it is every freaking day.
Yeah. I thought when we had the first one, and before we had the second one, I thought it was gonna be like really easy, just because it's like, well, we've already got one kid, we've already done this, like how much hard, like we're already not going out and partying, like we're already kind of in that mode. But yeah, no, it was definitely a lot harder than I thought, because the first one doesn't like stop being like a lot of work, and then you just have like way more work with the second one, so it's not like it's like, I don't know. And then they'll like fucking fight and shit. So it wasn't like, oh, it's only like 5% more work. In some cases, it's like 150% more work.
Yeah. I think the worst is, and I'm just guessing. It's not really, my knowledge because I just fucking don't know. But I imagine like you had many situations where one kid was just like, "Oh, it's for me. It's time to sleep. Fuck off," and then the other one's like, "Oh, it's a bright day, even though it's a night. Let's not sleep at all." And then,
Usually they're both not wanting to sleep.
oh, that's beautiful.
But yeah, I mean, when they should be sleeping, or they're super fucking tired. But yeah, they're usually mostly in the same sort of like mood. Either that's a crabby mood, or a good mood.
Dude,
They're the
wait till they
younger one.
conspire against you.
What's up? Yeah. The younger one pretty much does like exactly what the older one does. Like it's just like a little parrot. He just like says exactly, like literally, like she'll say something, he'll say like the exact same thing.
That is
She'll do
funny.
something, he'll try and do the exact same thing, like all day. So it's definitely funny to see, him like look up to her and like copy her on everything.
That is funny as hell, dude. Wait till they conspire against you and like plot fucking. We gotta kill dad. We gotta destroy his computer so he cannot
Well,
do everydays anymore.
I, I hope they don't just straight up murder me. But yeah, I'm sure they'll. I'm sure there will be some plotting against me. That's
Dude,
for
I'm
sure.
pretty sure. Yeah, you're gonna see the writing on the wall. I'm pretty sure if that's about
Yeah,
to
well,
happen.
I'm definitely the hard ass. So if they're gonna freaking kill somebody between me and my wife, it'll definitely be me.
Well, there's this saying that kids need a father figure, and it's because like they see you're at a. I think it's because like if you're a dad, usually dads are more like not aggressive, but like less agreeable in a way.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just like in our freaking crocodile brain, it just goes along the lines of, oh, this is the alpha chimp, like we have to fucking listen to this guy.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is like my wife is a school teacher, so she's got like way more patience just kind of like built in from
Right.
that career choice. And I have like no fucking patience, so the kids can be like, just shut the fuck up. I will freaking like, I just have way less patience for just general noise and like fucking around.
Right. I try to have
Uh,
patience, but man, sometimes it's impossible. It's like, what do
yeah,
you like?
yeah,
What do
it's
you want?
definitely well, yeah, it's they definitely test it. They
Nah, they
find
do.
those boundaries.
Hey, but it's 99% of pain and then 1% of fun that kind of pays for all of it.
It's
So
true. It's
I think
true.
it's a good deal.
Yeepers.
Yo, dude. So you had your little own anniversary not that long ago, right? How long ago that was? Was it this year or last year where you
Of what?
reached 10 years of everydays?
That was last year, so I'm actually at 11 years of everydays now.
Fuck
In
yeah.
May was 11 years.
Damn.
Yeah, it's
Damn,
pretty
dude.
crazy.
It is crazy, dude. I
Time
I I
flies.
I know I asked you that before. I mean, we discussed it in length before. I'm just curious because, like, I try to. So, let's put it this way. I want to figure out your brain a little bit more. Kind of maybe see if I can learn something here. But I remember we talked about this last time, and you kind of went over how you approach that thing. Like it's almost like a habit that you have, and it's just like no matter what's happening, you're just gonna do it. I have this, when I try to do personal work, it usually hits me to do it when I'm the most busy. It's like when you
Yeah,
have the client work and you have to do a lot of freaking, a lot
sure.
of freaking things, and then all of a sudden it's like, this is a perfect time to learn new software, or
Yeah,
like, oh, this project that you never wanted to touch because you were too lazy before, like, you know
yeah.
what? Now because you're too busy, like, let's just throw this wrench in your.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I when it's like the fucking worst time, then it's like, oh yeah, now I'm like super motivated to like work on XYZ. Like especially in terms of like VJ loops or other like the short film I'm working on, stuff like that. It definitely you get that motivation at the worst possible fucking time.
Yeah, does it come for you like in bursts, or is it more like you know I I can 100% with the 100% guarantee say that you're doing your everydays, but I'm sure like you're not excited about all of them. You know?
No, no, I'm definitely not excited. And it doesn't, to be honest, the every day doesn't really feel like personal work. It
Mm.
feels like it's just like, I don't know, almost like client work. Like it's just something I have to do. Like it's
Right.
not like a choice where it's kind of like, the client wants XYZ. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think about like, am I going to do this or do I have the motivation to do it? There, like, motivation doesn't really sort of like factor into it. It's just like this thing I feel like I have to do
Right.
just because I've done it so long. I'm such in that like mindset that it's not, there's no choice there. It's just like, well, okay, that's what the fucking client wants. That's what I have to do.
Mm-hmm. Do you have
So
like
that's
a
kind of
Do you have like a threshold for quality that you want to achieve when you're working on those?
I mean, I mean, I'm trying to make them not suck, but there's kind of, it's sort of, however, there's the deadline of 24 hours sort of dictates the threshold of quality, that it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, it is what it is. It's kind of each day just sort of struggling to whatever I can possibly do to make that day suck as little as possible. And then
Right.
it's kind of hard. You run out of time and it's like, well, it still sucks, but I'm out of time, so it is what it is.
That makes sense. I mean,
Some
honestly,
days I'll
like,
have more like motivation than others to like, if I've got an idea of something that's
mm-hmm.
like a little more complicated, then it'll be like, okay, like I'm gonna really like sort of, put in extra time if that means staying up later or doing whatever. But,
Right.
a lot of days it's just kind of like, what could I possibly do to like not make something completely embarrassing?
That's interesting. That's interesting. Definitely. I mean, I'm trying to figure out because like doing something every day, it's like I can see totally um, how easily you can not only just lose motivation, but like, and obviously if you have this approach that this is not a personal thing, but more like work project, then the kind of motivation part of doing it is
Mm-hmm.
like diminished, I would say. But then there comes the creativity part where you actually have to have an idea to do something. I
Yeah.
wonder. I
I
wonder
think
how you
it's
approach
more
that.
so I think the motivation part like is not a factor in like sitting down. Like it's like I have to sit down, and then from
Mm-hmm.
there usually a good percentage of the time after a little bit I'll kind of like I'll get into it, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, this could be kind of cool, and it usually almost always will fall short of my idea or concept or whatever because of just time and
Yeah.
technique and blah blah blah. But it's usually it's not like it won't feel like work after I kind of like the first half
Right.
hour or so.
That makes sense. But yeah, it's just so I guess you're just flowing with it almost. It's like okay, let's
Yeah,
just
it's
start doing
usually I'll
something.
get into maybe it'll only be a very short amount of time, but there'll be usually some level of flow there where it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, okay, it seems like it's clicking, and then a lot of times it'll seem like it's really like, oh man, actually this is like pretty decent, and then I'll like walk away and come back to it, and it's like, what the fuck was I thinking? This sucks. So that's the thing that I think is very tough about it is you don't, because it's so quick, and because I usually do it at the end of the day just because it's like I don't have time during the day, or I would spend way too much time on it.
Yeah.
I don't have the like benefit of like looking at things with a fresh set of eyes. The fresh set of eyes is the next day after I've already like published it. Then
Right.
it's like, oh yeah, maybe if I just fucking move that or change this color or lighten that up or blah 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 blah, then you're like, it's immensely, at least I find it to be immensely helpful, just stepping away from something, coming back and like, okay, let me look at it again. And,
Yeah.
you see a million things.
There's this saying sleeping over it, and
Yeah.
I guess it's just like your brain gathers all the information at the time, and then once you go to sleep and have a little rest, you actually allow the brain to process all the information that it gathered, and at the end of it, you might wake up next day. It's like what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. I definitely find that very, very like helpful, which is not really something that's part of this
Yeah.
particular endeavor.
Dude, how does doing everydays help you at work? Because I can imagine apart from, I mean, there's like many layers of it that I could imagine is helping you tremendously when it comes to work. I guess like the one thing would be just the motivation part. Obviously, it's like okay, I'm doing this thing already, um, so I don't really need a motivation to work on even a shitty project because it's almost like we're just repeating the same thing. But I'm more
Sure.
curious, like from a perspective of productivity and tackling really maybe troubling or ideas that are difficult to tackle. Sometimes you have those projects where things are pretty straightforward. Okay, I have to just do A, B, and C, and make sure that it's the
Yeah,
proper quality, and then we're done. And sometimes it's just like I don't even really have a vision of what this is supposed to be, and other days might be just like, oh, this is really difficult topic to be covered. I wonder
sure.
just if how you approach that, and if when you work on every days, does it actually help you with solving those really hard ones?
Yeah, I definitely think it definitely gets you, good at starting from a blank canvas and kind of coming up with ideas, because it's
Mm-hmm.
something you have to do literally every single day. Is start, I've got no ideas. And especially sometimes, to me, the hardest projects are the ones where there isn't that much direction, where it's kind of like, we'll just make something cool. It's like, okay, fuck me. Like, tell me what you want, and I'll go do that, but give me some fucking like nudge in a goddamn direction. So
Right.
it's definitely good with that too, because there is no nudge. It's like, it's a fucking picture. Come out with a picture. So it definitely helps with that. I think the other thing it helps with a lot is like just workflow techniques,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like coming up with the like quickest possible solution, because I mean, a lot of times, or 99% of the time, the client does not give a fuck how you got to the end product. And
Right.
so that's kind of like with this project, it's sort of the same. Like, people don't really, to a large degree, a large percentage of the people looking at, the pictures don't really give a fuck how that picture got made. Some people do if they're like, kind of more in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
nerds, then it's like, oh, did you use a displacement map or a blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? The people nerd out
Yeah.
on the like details of how it was made, but a large percentage of people don't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
So I think it helps kind of like get you out of that mindset of caring to some degree how it was made, and just focusing on, well, is this good or not? Because the client really does not give a fuck how it was made.
Yeah, it's true.
Um, so I think it helps with that too. Um, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's kind of little benefits too, in terms of like, just because a lot of the stuff I get hired to do is not that far from the everydays, or a lot of times they'll like, clients will use that as like mood boards of like, oh, we want, XYZ, and it's like, well, I already have the project files for that. Let's go, let's do it. So it's sort of like, you're not kind of like recreating the wheel in a lot of cases. So I
Yeah.
think it helps very directly with stuff like that.
I'm guessing like just doing something every day where you know, as you said, you might have days where you actually have more motivation. You have like really good ideas that you want to tackle and proceed with. I guess that's the time where you get to actually build your own library of things. And um, is that the way you work? Like you just create? Do you create most of your stuff from scratch, or I'm pretty sure you have a large library of assets that you already use and used before, and you just like pull them in and reshape and redefine remix. But I'm just curious, like how much of that is really in your work versus how much of new fresh ideas you're always trying to try.
Sure. So before I hit 10 years, I was really trying to like model, just about everything to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. It was sort of like when I first started out, I would model literally everything because I wanted to learn how to model. I was just starting out. I didn't know how to model. I didn't know how to do, anything in 3D. So when I first started out, every single thing was like modeled from scratch that day. Over the course of the 10 years, it's sort of like, eventually it was sort of like, well, I don't really want to model a tree. I just want a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I kind of slowly sort of, integrate more and more things, more and more pieces that were sort of kind of non-essential to the picture that I would like use, just, turbo squid, whatever.
Right.
And then after 10 years, I kind of like sort of took all the kind of uh, cap off myself or whatever, and kind of just open it up to using any model from like anywhere for like anything, because I'm
Mm.
not really so interested in like modeling now. I'm more interested in color composition, trying to tell more of a narrative story and just emotion and things like that versus like, you know, nerding out on hard surface modeling, this tiny little whatever.
Right.
Um, so now I'm like over the last, year or whatever, since then I've been building a library of crap that I bought from, a bunch of different places. Adobe stock for one is definitely a great place.
What would you use Adobe Stock specifically for? Like, because those are just photos, right? Would that be just textures?
No, yeah, I mean, I'd rather not talk about that, but there's definitely, I've got like a thing with Adobe stock, so I would definitely say Adobe stock is great.
Oh, okay. I
Uh,
gotcha. I gotcha. I gotcha.
um, but no, I think there's, just I think in general, like I do really believe in like using like stock stuff to like not recreate the wheel. I think
Mm-hmm.
clients like are expecting more and more for less money and less time. So it's sort of like handicapping yourself by like, well, I don't want to like, take this model of a tire when I could just model it myself. It's like that, like literally almost never, unless you need something that you can't find online. I would say it almost never makes sense to like model it yourself
Yeah.
because you're going to spend so much more time. I mean, I would say the most expensive model on Turbo Squid that I've like ever seen is maybe like 2 grand. And that's something that would take you just like months upon months to fucking model and texture. So
Yeah.
it's like most things are, I don't know, less than $100. And it's like that probably would save you like 2 days of work. And
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly. I always look at it as an investment, and I agree with you 100%. I don't think, as you said, I don't think I had ever have any client ask me like, "Hey, how did you do that?" I only had one client, one of the directors I worked with, that asked me how did I do it because he wanted to learn how to do
sure.
similar things. But that was
Yeah.
about it. It was never like, "Oh, you use 3D from stock or whatever." Like they
Yeah.
don't care.
No, they do not care.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that it's like you're producing assets that are going to go into a pipeline or this or that, then obviously, like, yeah, you're going to need to do it a certain way, but you know that beforehand that it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I can't just like do blah, blah, blah. And the client is like, they know that. They know that you're like, they want it done a certain way. And so they're going to kind of like budget that into the like time of the project of like, okay, well, this needs to be sub D modeled and blah, blah, blah. And that's going to take a while. And we're creating this asset from scratch. Da, 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 and that's kind of like what you're getting paid to do. If you're not
Mhm.
getting paid to model, if you're not getting paid to make materials, then maybe you shouldn't be making materials and modeling things.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of, sort of where materials too. Like when I first started out, like I would make all materials, from scratch by myself, uh, you know, tweaking the bump maps and the, blah, blah, blah. And, da, 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 da. And now it's just like, oh my God, there's so many fucking assets out there. It's like, why would I create this fucking material by myself? There's
Yeah.
people
Exactly.
who've spent days making this material and I can just like use it for materials are even cheaper where it's like there's so many places and honestly so many for free even too, so it's kind of like that's another one where I don't usually bother making my own because it just time wise does not seem to make sense.
Yeah. It does. I treat it the same way as you say. Like it's just a stock. You pick
Yeah,
it up. You need it specifically for that, and you just use it. I do the same thing with V-Ray. I get there's like this website called vraymaterials.de where you have like community members posting their own sort of creations. Um, so what I would do normally is like pretty much with any project, even my personal projects. Half of the time I would just go there like, oh, I need like a metal material that
Mm-hmm.
like looks really good, and I'll pick it up and then like pick it apart.
Yeah.
Maybe change the diffuse texture or reflection texture. Maybe adjust the IOR to make it look better in the scene. I just tweak it specifically for the scene, but I'm just hooping over that first step where it's like, oh my god, I
Sure.
have to figure out all the parameters of like freaking what this is supposed to be, and
Mm-hmm.
how metal works. Like fuck that shit. It's just like I don't have time for
Yeah.
that. I wonder what was your switch though, because you said like first 10 years was like pretty much trying to get everything created from the scratch, but obviously that changed. And was it a change because of your interest, or it was more like a realization like, okay, I kind of made my milestone by now doing it for 10 years. I think 10 years is enough of this. Like what was your idea behind
Motivation.
this
I
motivation?
think I think it was both. The motivation behind it, I think, was both things. It was one, it was sort of, um I'm not as interested in like, fine detail of modeling. I would rather try and like see what I can do, just kind of using everything.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like kind of a nice, like fun sort of change of pace, because before I'd see things, it's like, oh man, if I could put like a friggin', dog or a blah 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 or whatever in this. It's like, oh, but I don't have, or it'd be sweet if there were a bunch of pipes here. And it's like, oh, but I can't use. It's gonna take me forever to model all those pipes, blah blah blah. Maybe I put one pipe in or something like that. Whereas now it's
Yeah.
like, sweet, boom, I got a bunch of pipes, put the pipes in there. So it kind of like it changed pretty fundamentally. I think the work that I'm putting out like looks, I don't want to say it looks nothing like the work before, but it definitely, there's certain pictures where it's like I could not have done that before, because it's like it's using a shit ton of models like
Yeah.
that I did not have, and I would never have done that before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely made it more, I guess, narrative in some sense with that. The other thing I think is this is sort of like, if you if you want to be able to sort of like keep up with, like content creation on some level. I'm not sure the right word here. I think content creation is probably the best sort of umbrella
Mm-hmm.
word. If you want to keep up with that, you need to use the like best and most like newest tools. And to me, one of the newest tools we have is these giant, massive libraries of like ready to use assets that you can just put it in. Now you got that thing. You don't need to worry about it. Whereas like 10 years ago, like 15 years ago, those weren't there. You
Yeah.
couldn't just type anything into the internet and immediately pull up a 3D model of it that you could buy for like relatively cheap, like really quite affordable for what you're getting and like what use it is to you.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like, wanting to use the most up to date tools, just like I want to use the most up to date, render engines and plugins and software. This is just to me an extension of that tool set. It's just another like tool, just like any other plugin or thing that it's sort of like, oh sweet, this is available now. Now there's like, you can just get any model you want and put it into a scene and like go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just, another tool that I was interested in sort of learning how to use, because I think it's one of those things where you can use it to make like something new and interesting, or it's something you could be just lazy and it's like, oh, here's, a model that I just put into the scene and it's just kind of like a hit render. So
Yeah.
I think, and I do that too. I'm not trying to act like everything I do is this fucking amazing, brilliant, original, whatever. But I try not to. I try to like take this and like make something more of it than just like fucking rendering out the model. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think it's a tool that takes a, uh, sort of, there's a skill to being able to like take these models and make something like more interesting from them than just like, oh, you're entering a model that you got online, cool,
Yeah, I mean,
type
look,
thing.
I'm looking at the work, and I'm obviously, as we were talking, I'm just scrolling over and, just going, because for me, it's almost impossible to keep up with you, like, almost daily. Yeah, I'll pop up on on Instagram or social media, and if the fucking algorithm helps me, then I'll see your work. If not, then
Yeah.
I won't.
It is
um,
definitely amazing how much is like dictated by that.
yeah, it changed over the past couple of years, like heavily, and it's kind of crazy how, it's not surprising because I knew that social media. I knew it before, and it's just becoming more apparent, and more people are talking about it. How social media are basically being designed to hook you in. It's not really about your interest anymore. It's like feeding you with what they think you should be interested with, and that is so apparent. Like it is really apparent with freaking YouTube. You know what's crazy about YouTube these days? Like I don't see anything I'm subscribed to. I see like the shit that I'm not even interested with in my trending
Well,
feed or whatever.
that's very odd because that's not really, I mean, it seems like for whatever reason it's failed because it really should be trying to like feed you things that you are interested in.
Yeah,
I mean, when I
it's
go on
it's
YouTube,
crazy.
it's fucking all like all the little suggested videos on the side is like all pretty much shit that it's like, God damn it, I'd love to watch that. Fuck, I gotta focus. Don't have time to fucking watch this thing. Like it's quite effective for me at least. They've definitely got me dialed into like fucking, a bunch of videos that I do want to see. Um,
No, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
There is a lot of videos that I really do want to see. Like that's on the feed, and I gonna get you hooked up. But it's just like I don't. I see more of that than like the new content that comes from the stuff that I'm subscribed to, which is to me is like I didn't even know that guy made like 10 videos since I last checked. And that's
Yeah.
kind of annoying. That's really annoying. They changed it
Yeah.
like you used to subscribe and see videos. Now you have to press the bell. And now when you press the bell, you have to choose an option if you see it all the time or maybe sometimes. It's just like fucking stop
Are you
making it confusing.
are you talking about on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, YouTube
Yeah,
specifically.
okay.
But even
Gotcha. Yeah,
even
I don't.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't like. I guess YouTube to me is more uh like I'm subscribed to people, but yeah, I guess I don't really. It's a little bit more passive, I guess, unless I'm
Right.
like specifically watching a thing. Like what comes up, I guess. Yeah, I'm a little more at the mercy of whatever they kind of like put in my face. That it's like, oh yeah, like that's right, this thing. Then I
Hmm.
just like watch it or whatever.
I think Instagram
Um,
had a problem with that where they changed the algorithm to show you stuff that is not the newest, but like the sort of suggesting what you should be interested with based on your subscriptions. And it wasn't chronological, and I think I remember it was like uproar, and they changed it back. So, but yeah, it's like what I was about to say. We kind of deviated from the main topic. It's just like you're just looking at your work, and specifically, I could tell that there was a shift, because some of the stuff you've been putting out lately is like, holy shit, that's like something that you would normally work on for a couple of days. And that was like a major shift because I remember when we spoke about last time where you were doing the everydays and sort of explaining your thinking process and how you approach that stuff, and the lines to what you said now is just like, yeah, I was trying to do everything from scratch. There's only so much you can do within the time frame you have,
oh yeah,
and if you have more time, and obviously it's gonna be more work, but now it's just like it's almost like a floodgate that it just gonna open. It's like fuck yeah, fuck that shit. I'm just gonna do whatever is ready for me, and I'll just do it.
well, and I'm also trying to like take those tools and like put them together even more to make it even sort of like faster to the point of like adding like little animation so I can make more of those sort of like little daily animation type things.
Mm.
Um, so I think there's definitely like sort of like honing the kind of database of assets too is definitely um, a piece of that too, kind of getting the tools in order so that when you do sort of like have an idea of like, oh, I could do, put X, Y, and Z together, that those things are like ready to go really quick, and it's not like a bunch of rework of pulling up this and fucking loading this and making sure these textures aren't all jacked up and, just stupid, mundane bullshit that to me is not creative. It's just like technical busy work,
Yeah.
like bullshit. And you can just focus on like if you have an idea, being able to execute that idea like really fucking quickly.
Yeah. I hate the technical busy work. It just makes you feel like you're working, and then 2 hours later, it's like nothing is done.
Yeah, it's like I did not fucking like that's I just got a bunch of like new computers and it like just the like process of getting that and I put it off for so long because it's like I fucking hate dealing with loading drivers and blah 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 bullshit, just all that stupid shit that's just feels like I wasted the day. But if you're not on top of that shit, you can like spend more time kind of fighting it
Yeah,
than if you just like sat down and kind of like got your shit in line. So wait,
exactly.
so I've been looking at that stuff that you did recently,
Hmm.
those like anime type renders. That was all V-Ray?
Yeah, it's all
Oh
V-Ray.
my god, dude, those are looking so fucking good. They look
Thanks,
freaking
man.
amazingly good, dude. It's wait, do you use like V-Ray? Like, is that the like main render engine that you use still?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I use
Wow,
Octane
dude.
every now and then, but
But
V-Ray,
mostly
V-Ray
V-Ray, you're
mostly.
still
Yeah.
like you're going down with the ship.
Dude, V-Ray is awesome. I'll tell you one thing. It's just like there's certain scenes that I would probably use Octane to get
Hmm.
things done, but more and more, especially with like the newer updates, like the newest update from V-Ray makes the GPU rendering a little more smooth. Because my main gripe with V-Ray was that the GPU render had like a lot of limitations before.
Okay. So
they're
when you
keeping to
render
improve
that
it,
stuff,
but yeah, go ahead.
when you render that stuff, you're rendering it with like V-Ray GPU.
No, those are specifically CPU because there are
Okay.
certain nodes in the shader that I'm using, like certain specific. It could be like, with V-Ray, it's like you have your software nodes. Like in 3ds Max, you would have your bitmaps, like fall-ups, like all of those different nodes that you can modify your shader with, and then you have
Hmm.
V-Ray specific nodes as well, right? So there's like two different categories. And if you're doing a CPU render, it basically accepts all of them. But if you're doing a GPU render, there's specific ones that are not supported yet, per se, right?
Gotcha.
And because they're
Gotcha.
not supported yet, if you just try to do a GPU render of that, it's like that one specific node that is like a core of what I'm
It'll
doing
fuck
is
it
not
up.
available. Yeah, exactly. It will
Yeah.
just make look things like shit, basically.
Sure.
But for
Sure.
like realistic renders, it's just like it works just fine, And I have like 4 GPUs. My other computer died. I have to put it back together to have like eight GPUs, and then like the
Nice.
GPU rendering is like fucking fast, obviously.
Pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah. But for most of the work, it's like going back and forth between GPU and CPU. And the newest
Gotcha.
stuff, I've one of the things that I love about V-Ray, and I know Octane does a lot of the same things.
Oh, dude, I'm like not. I'm about whatever like works for
Yeah,
each person. There's so many like good renders, and it's kind of like I feel
yeah.
like
You have
people get
Redshift coming up that is really
butthurt.
good.
Like I'm definitely like not about any like this is the best thing. If you're not using this, you're fucking stupid. It's just
I go
no.
with Ash back and forth. It's just like mocking each other. He's just like, "Oh, I did it in Octane." I was just like, "Man, but V-Ray, this is V-Ray," and then he would do the same to me. It's like funny, just trying to mock each other. But there's one thing that I fucking love when it comes
Hmm.
to V-Ray. It's how it operates with the camera. So specifically, but that's specific to 3ds Max, I think. I'm not sure about Maya or Cinema 4D. I know 3ds Max is like the most features when it comes to V-Ray
Yeah,
because it's like an
that's
almost
that's
native.
definitely my understanding as well. That the 3ds Max one was always kind of a definitely much better than the other
Yeah,
implementation.
but the main one that is like really impressive to me is like how it handles the camera, because the
In
camera,
terms of what?
like, so here's the things you can do with the camera. You can use actual lens profiles from your actual camera and plug it
Oh,
in
nice.
to make the camera behave the same way. You have like all of the like real camera operations, you know, your ISOs, your fucking shutter speeds, all of that, right? You have
Nice.
tilt shift. You have you can set it up so it's a tilt shift camera. You can set it up so that the lens has anamorphic distortion. So
Oh, nice.
let's say you want to do a scene with bokeh and you want to do like a lot of, you know, background stuff. You can set the camera to have a distortion, vignetting, and anamorphic distortion, so that your background blurriness will be actually stretched, like in the real, you know, anamorphic lens. So
Sure, sure,
so those things, and obviously it's not as perfect as you would have with the real camera. There's like those little imperfections of real
sure.
lenses that come into play that make thing look really unique, but it's so goddamn close, dude. I
To be honest, the I've always thought like V-Ray just in general has like is one of the best, if not like the best, just overall looking like stuff. It definitely, to be honest, I think all of them are at like a level
yeah.
where it's sort of like I'm not sure I could like look at a picture and be like, oh, that's redshift or that's blah blah blah. Like they're all like photorealistic, like ridiculous now.
Yeah.
It's just what you're used to, what sort of tiny little specific features you're like, nah, I can't live without blah blah blah. Like that kind of separates them at this
Yeah.
point to me.
I think the
Though
only
to
one
be
that
honest, I've been the stuff that I've seen, and I think I just gotta like fucking man up and take the plunge. The like real time engines, Unreal and fucking Unity, like the stuff that I've been seeing out of those are just looking absolutely ridiculous. For like real time, did you see that Reflections GDC thing, the Star Wars thing?
no, I have not.
With oh fuck me, look up
Gotta check it out.
yeah, just look up Unreal Engine Reflections real time ray tracing GDC. Oh my god, like those engines are getting absolutely fucking ridiculous. I think
Oh yeah,
they're
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I've seen that. Yeah, it's definitely
yeah.
getting there.
It's definitely like, especially for me, I'm not usually going for like something that's completely like 100% photorealistic.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily need something that's like, insanely accurate. Um yeah,
See,
I don't
I'm on
know.
the fence with that because like everyone, and look, like fucking getting familiar with Unreal Engine is not gonna hurt you because the whole industry is moving that way anyways, you know. There's a couple of
Mhm.
projects that I worked on already that if I knew Unreal Engine would just make my work that much faster.
Sure.
um, but then on the other hand, I look at it also from this perspective where I know for like V-Ray is already working on the real time thing, like so that you actually have the real time feedback and you can work with it. They're working on it. Um, Octane is about to have it. Like they already did the demos. I can't remember what it's called.
The brigade thing.
Yeah, the Brigade. It's just like the matter of it's just a matter of them finishing it and releasing, right? So those tools are coming from those render engines. And funny enough, V-Ray is actually made plugin for Unreal Engine, so you can actually replace the Unreal Engine rendering engine with V-Ray and do the ray tracing with that instead. So it's I think all of those worlds of your platform, your 3D platform that you use for daily work, and those real-time gaming platforms, they're like slowly but surely on the collision course. All
Sure.
of them are
Yeah,
getting similar features.
I definitely think they are, but I still think it's going to be a while before they're going to be able to like sort of like match that speed, because if you look at that like that demo, and that demo was done on like a crazy fucking box that was, just ridiculous. But there's certain things that I've seen in, that are not that were just on a regular box
Hmm.
demos, and I would say they're literally like 10,000 times faster, because you're talking about 30 frames a second,
Yeah.
sometimes 60 frames a second, And if you figure there's certain frames where if I'm looking at that and I'm looking at Octane, I'd be like, well, that would probably take an Octane at 1080, maybe 2 minutes a frame. I'd be pretty happy if I could get that to 2 minutes a frame, like being that clear. So if you talk about 2 minutes versus 60 frames a second, that's
Yeah, it's
insane.
huge. It's
That's a
definitely huge.
huge, order of magnitude like faster. So
But then
yeah,
again, how much of that rendering speed you're really saving compared to the fact that in order to get your Unreal Engine scene set up, you actually have to get all the import and exports, make sure that the geometry is there, and then you have to reset up all the shaders and everything inside of that engine.
it's
I don't know. I
I
haven't I haven't used
completely
it.
hear you on that. It's definitely a big change in workflow.
Yeah.
And that's what's kept me from it because it's sort of like I can work, relatively speaking, much faster in Cinema 4D with Octane and blah blah blah, versus like upending my whole workflow to learn this new thing. That's kind of what's kept me from
Mhm.
doing it. I'm sure that's a big part of what's kept you in V-Ray is like I fucking know V-Ray. I'm really fast in V-Ray. Like why the fuck would I learn these other things for it to be,
Yeah.
maybe a little better? I don't know. It just
It's
seems
one of
like,
the reasons I have not started with Blender yet, because I'm yet I'm still waiting to see a feature in Blender that I cannot do in 3ds Max, and that's
and
what's
that's
keeping me from changing.
yeah, and that's my view is the same thing. Like I have no interest in like learning something just to learn it. Like
Yeah.
unless it's offering a feature that I don't currently have that's gonna make pictures better. Because again, nobody gives a fuck how you made the picture. But if this is something where it's like I could render out a video every single day because
Mhm.
rendering is now like nothing, that I could render 10 seconds of video like no problem, and it looks like 90% as good or 95% as good, then it's like, well, that's definitely something I can't do now.
Yeah.
So that kind of, to me, sort of changes the equation a bit. I don't know. It's definitely something
Yeah. How
that's
you
on my
approach
radar.
how you approach learning? Because I agree with you. Like just learning something for the sake of learning is not really worth it. I used to have the approach of like I want to learn everything, but it quickly diminished by the fact that I saw that I'm spending so much time getting used to bullshit like going through the UI and
Yeah,
relearning the hotkeys, and that just like mess ups with your brain. It's like you work on PCs or Macs.
PCs.
Yeah, so but you're familiar with Macs. You've worked on Mac before, right? It's like
Not
that's
really, to be
you
honest.
not
I've
okay.
spent very little time on Macs.
Okay,
Very,
gotcha.
very little
I
time.
used to switch between, like I had a period of time where I would just work on Mac and then I would switch to PC and then like, oh, fucking, I like Mac more because Mac OS is awesome, right? So I would switch back and forth and I always had this issue where it's just like fucking Windows keys and Command key, they were like switched on
Mm-hmm.
Mac keyboard, and it was just like threw me off completely in terms of like using the software and like how the Windows behave versus how Mac OS behaves. It just always was like this adjustment period. Now the same thing times 20 because you have to relearn everything from scratch
Yeah.
pretty much. It's just like it's almost you're wasting more time to learn something that just doesn't benefit you enough for the time you
Yeah.
spent on it.
Yeah, that's why to me I completely agree. The threshold is like very, very high to like learning anything new, that it really has to be like very useful and something that I literally cannot do any other way than
Yeah.
like learning this new thing. Um so yeah, that's kind of, it's definitely a thing, but I think the real-time engines might be getting there in terms of hitting that threshold for me where it's gonna would open up something that I like just can't do now because I'm bottlenecked by like render time.
Yeah. So in terms of render times, I don't know. Have you seen the new Blender demo that they've released? That there's this new engine that they have. It's called Eevee.
I have seen some of that.
Yeah. So it's similar to what you would expect from Unreal Engine. I mean, Unreal Engine is different, right? but it's
Sure.
like the similar philosophy. It does like the real time. It is really fast. Like when you look at the preview, it's pretty much real time rendering. You see a little noise here and there, especially on like more complex scenes from the demos that I saw. But it's really that, and I agree with you. Like 90, if you're just if you want to reach that 90% goal, where it's like I just want to have that, quality bar that I gonna use, and then from there, if I need more, I'll just switch to something else or like
Hmm.
redefine it in Photoshop or whatever. And I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I'm really curious about it. Everyone is excited, like super excited about that specifically. To me, it's like it's good for preview. Just judging from the work that I do specifically, it's like okay, that would be great for preview, but for like
Sure.
production work, it's so behind
Sure.
from
Yeah, I
what I
think it
look at
depends.
least.
Like, I think I would like to do more like video stuff, more
Mm-hmm.
like taking some of these like everydays and making, short videos that give you a better sense of the like environment that I've built because a lot of times it's like, you build this 3D environment and then you just sort of like bake it down to a picture. You're just taking a snapshot of this
Yeah.
entire sort of like world you've built. So it's sort of like in some ways that's kind of like the worst way to experience like the thing that I just spent, a couple hours making.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, it really looks kind of cool from over here. And if you could just like, you know, if I could release like a VR thing or an AR thing every day, like that would be super fucking cool. If you could just like, here's the environment I made today. It's, every day you
Yeah.
can
Take a
like pop
hike,
on a
walk in it. Explore.
pop on a headset and like look around and like experience this thing and there's shit floating around and fucking clouds and smoke and blah 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 and all that shit is just assets that are available in the Unreal store and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely it's getting there that there's some possibilities for things that are just not possible right now with
Yeah.
kind of how the renderers are set up.
Yeah. Definitely, I can
And I think they're
see.
they're closing the gap on quality like really quickly, like
Mm-hmm.
way quicker than if I look at some of the how fast the other I'm not sure what the name standard render engines are progressing
Yeah.
versus how quickly it appears to me that they're like progressing on the like um, real time side. It just seems like they're catching up really really quick. Now I agree that what you say might happen that these engines realize okay like we should come out with a real time
Yeah.
component
Most of
or
them already
real
do.
time sort of like setting so that it's sort of like if you want something crazy fucking fast we've got you covered, and then if you want something that's like photoreal then you can switch over into this other
Yeah.
mode or whatever. That might happen, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah. It's already
definitely
happening for sure. Like 100%.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, the Brigade from Octane or the development that the guys over at Chaos Group have with the V-Ray, that kind of stuff is already making strides,
yeah,
towards that. Yeah, it's just like so many things when you look at it. When you look at the landscape of software, hardware, possibilities. It's just, yeah, like you really have to be selective, and
oh, it's ridiculous.
it's almost like you said with, like you're gonna go on the Turbo Squid or, Adobe stock.
Adobe stock.
Dude, you're gonna get all of those assets and to save yourself some time, but you have to be I guess you have to have the same approach and be selective with the software. At the end of the day, like you don't want to waste time learning something, and it's like one of the reasons I hate the debate of which engine is better is because every year that first spot is taken by someone else who just happened to have an update recently. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
just
yeah,
always shifts. And I,
yeah. Well, and I think there's no right answer because it's like people, well, which one's the best for blah blah blah. Well, everybody does something different. I would
yeah,
guess that most of what you do is just stills. Is that correct?
as of now, yeah, I
So most of
plan to do some
so
videos, especially with that new shader that I made. I want to
so
do like
all of
some
these
small videos, but yeah, mostly stills.
Yeah, so it's sort of like any of these like animation, features, it's like that doesn't concern me that much. I mean, to some degree, but again,
Yeah.
not that much because mostly what I do is stills. And a lot of, I'm kind of sort of in between that. I do a lot of stills, obviously, with like the everydays, but then the commercial work that I do is more like motion work, most of it. But it's not motion work on like where I'm on a team that's this giant fucking pipeline that it's gonna like get handed off to the next, Houdini guy, and then there's gonna be a blah 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 coming in, and then the TD. It's like smaller pipelines where it's just one or two people touching it, or maybe nobody else touching it.
Mhm.
So I don't need some of the things that you would find in like Arnold, that it's sort of like, I'm going to render out 60 million passes and comp this and blah, 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 blah. It's like, nah, the commercial work that I do, there's no time for that. You don't
Yeah.
need to render out like 40 fucking passes. Like, not necessary. Um, so I think people are trying to like come up with like this, this renders better than this one. It's like they're all like they've all got their uses. They're all really fucking good. It's like everybody won. It's like which one who won? It's like we won.
Yeah.
Everybody won because everybody's got like a renderer now that's like perfect for their needs. Like if you want something that's just super fucking fast, but maybe doesn't have all these crazy high end features, Octane's great. If you want something that's maybe not quite as fast, but you can like tweak every fucking thing, Arnold is great. If you want something that's kind of maybe a little in between those two, Redshift is good. If you want something that's been around fucking forever and like is super like standard and proven, V-Ray's good. If you want, the list goes on and on of
Yeah. All of them are
use
good,
cases.
and it's good to have competition because those companies will look at each other's works like, fuck, they have this, we have to make sure we have something new too, and just
Oh,
pushes
absolutely.
the effort.
Yeah.
Imagine if there was only Apple and only iPhones. Like, iPhones would fucking suck, dude. That would be
Yeah,
like the worst. But we
for
have
sure.
Samsungs and all of the other phones. There's a competition that just drives. It just drives, developers to do something new and something better and
Yeah.
cheaper. It's constantly getting cheaper, so it's always in the benefit for us. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
good
for
shit,
sure.
man. Good shit. All right, let's jump into questions. There's quite a few of those, and we can wrap it up after that. We're supposed to have a conversation over computers, but some asshole fucked up your line, so we're doing it over phone. Um, yeah, there's a bunch of questions that people have been asking. Okay, let's start with this one. Does your dailies have story behind them, or are they just like cool art thing? And does different dailies have sometimes linking them or something? Bad English. It's I guess the idea would be if you're trying to link and almost create like a mini story in between those dailies.
Sure. Yeah, kind of. Yes and no, I would say. There isn't like a like super like, story written out that I wrote and I'm slowly telling that exact story. It's more so I guess sort of broad kind of themes that I
Mhm.
exploring, and I kind of instead of like, okay, every single day, like there's one thing I've been doing kind of lately is like this like emojis sort of like juxtaposed with like kind of war shit around them. Like these emojis are kind of like weapons or something.
You did like a
um
social commentary almost with them.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, but it's not like I'm not trying to like. I'm just trying to make something that, like, I guess, asks more questions, or I don't even know if it's that deep. It's more just like I'm not trying to say anything too like specific. It's
Mhm.
just more just like playing around with these sort of like concepts. I think
Right.
sometimes people think that there's like that I'm trying to push some sort of like agenda or like some message that it's like trying to make people think. It's like I'm not trying to make you think anything. It's a fucking emoji with some tanks around it. Don't go too balls deep on this, guys.
Don't do a
So
fucking blog post essay. about it.
Yeah, this isn't the fucking season finale of Lost here, guys. Like, we don't need to go to. You don't need to fucking start a subreddit for this. It's just a goddamn emoji with some fucking tanks around it, bro. So I think
Oh
it's
man, Beeple's getting political. He's getting into that fucking social conversation, man.
yeah, it's definitely like a lot of the like science fiction stuff. I think it's just interesting to like imagine like certain scenarios in the future with some of these giant companies, because I think that's these companies are really fucking like big and powerful, and I think that I don't know, some weird shit might happen in the future with them. Do I think those things? Do I fucking like? He hates Facebook or he hates Google. I don't fucking hate these companies. Like, I use them every day. Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to like rip on anything or rip on anybody. It's just more like it's just fantasy
Just a
ideas.
shill. You got paid.
It's
You
just
got paid.
ideas.
That's the
People and
truth.
chill.
You're trying to you're trying to bamboozle us right now. You're a shill. You're working for Illuminati, dude. um. Anyways, all right. The second question was, do you have any plans of attempting 2D work again, like your earlier everydays in the foreseeable future?
2D work like the Illustrator stuff I did, or like 2D work how?
Like, I guess Photoshop and fucking
Not
Illustrator.
really. Not really, to be honest. I'm definitely interested more in what can be done in like 3D and like those types of tools. Um, I think people, certain artists do amazing work in sort of like 2D stuff, but to
Mm.
me, I'm interested more in like what can be done in like a 3D space, and moving even more there for their even moving even more towards that, like what could possibly be done in a few years, from now, that some of the stuff could be adapted to like VR or AR.
Yeah. Um, Another one was post processing is really an important part of your everydays, obviously. What kind of advice would you give to someone who is not that good at post processing?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like I'm not that good at post processing. I look at somebody like you specifically, like the things you can do, like fucking paint overs. It's like, god damn it, like, or like you could take, I have to get something like 95% of the way
Mm-hmm.
there in cinema before I can take it to into Photoshop and get it that last, tiny percent. Whereas, you can take something and get it like 50% of the way there, and then take in fucking jam
I
on,
can I can get
insane
something from 0% too.
something insane by adding in textures and replacing this and that, and photo bashing and all this like crazy detail and stuff like that. So I wish I was better at that. I think it's honestly just practice. I don't know
It is. It
anything like
is
that, and
really.
I think it's maybe taking some Learn Squared courses.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Clog.
Of course. Of course.
No, I think
Hey, you
it's
took one already and all of a sudden you started having characters in your
No,
work.
I took honestly, I honestly only watched. You did one way back in the beginning with like I think it was with Ash.
Yeah.
I think you were teaching Ash.
Mhm.
And to be honest, if I'm being totally truthful, I literally only watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, just because I'm a frickin' too lazy to like learn. But in those 2 or 3 episodes, I learned a shit ton of like Photoshop things that I did not know, like that fucking match color. Like that was just like, oh fuck, are you serious? God damn it!
Dude, when I
Just like,
discovered the match color for the first time, I was like, "Are you shitting me?
yeah, like me
Are you
too. Yeah, it was
shitting
that.
me?" Yeah, it was
So to
like,
be honest, yeah, like taking one of those courses, like I think is just stupid of me to like not take it, because I'm sure there's a million like little tips and tricks, especially in Photoshop, which I just really do not feel remotely confident in
Mm.
of things that I could, learn to like get way better at post
Yeah, knowing
processing.
2D like really helps. Like if you know how to paint and photo bashing too, but doing
Yeah,
it properly and paying attention to light and like the kind of photography that you use to texturize your image and how you do it seamlessly. Like when you learn that, it just makes everything else so much easier. Because as you said, like then when you're working on your image and you know it's going to be a still image and you're
yeah,
building everything in 3D, you start to look at those spots where, like, I don't really need to do this really complex material to get the results that I want here specifically because I already
yeah.
have like a library of textures that I can use instead. That would be just like that fast, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the thing when I look at like the pictures, like specifically like the last time I remember seeing something like the Ghost in the Shell stuff you did of
Mm-hmm.
like those robots, and they'll look like super good, and like I'll look at them for a long time and then I'll like notice something where it's like really kind of like not, I don't want to say like sloppy, but it's just like I can tell you just like painted a line. But it's like I didn't notice that until I looked at this picture for literally like 5 minutes straight. So I think
Yeah, when you
like
examine it
learning those
closely.
little like things that you can get away with, like nobody's gonna notice this. I can just put that in real quick, and your
Mm-hmm.
eye's not even gonna like notice that I just quick painted this little like highlight or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Learning those shortcuts that'll like, you can make this thing that looks absolutely fucking awesome, and like nobody's gonna notice this tiny little like shortcut, and I can fucking crank out like shit like super super fucking quick like that.
Yeah. No, that's a really cool question. What do you think of being a jack of all trades? Is that more of a good or more of a bad thing?
I mean, I think it
I have
depends
my
on what you
opinion
want
on
to.
it,
I think it
but
depends on what you want to do. I mean, if
mhm.
you want to be like a generalist and like do a bunch of different things, then I think it's good. If you want to be somebody who like models all day, well then that's not good. So I think it really, it's, I mean, obviously the saying is jack of all trades, master of none. There's, if somebody was like, I want you, I'm going to hire beeple to model, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that will turn out like shit. Like, don't hire me just to model some asset because you
Yeah,
will be very disappointed. I will fuck up your fucking pipeline.
yeah.
So it's a trade off. What do you think here? What were your
You
thoughts?
know, when I look at, you know, let's say, let's give an example. Vitaly is like almost the go-to example when it comes to like the master of one thing, because he's like if you think about modeling hard surface and or even organic, like even to a degree organic work that he does, he's
Mm-hmm.
like the best in the industry in my eyes. Like for hard
Mm-hmm.
surface modeling, hands down, there's no one who's even close to what he can do.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
how you know, I don't remember. I don't know if you've seen the live stream that I've done with him and Ash and when we're discussing Ghost in the Shell, and he was doing a demo. And he was like this, he was just showing how he did those muscle fibers with like little
Oh,
dots
sure.
and shit like that.
Yeah.
And I shit you not, when he was doing it, it looked like I asked him a question. Is it like a fucking sped up video that you're just playing? Because everything is happening so fast on the screen. It looks like a time lapse. Um, and it's just because he spent so much. This guy has a keyboard that you can buy the keyboards where it's generating like a heat map. It has like a software function that generates a heat map that is showing which buttons you're pressing the most, and he's
Jesus.
generating heat maps like regularly for himself to check, hey, am I using the shortcuts in the right manner? Like if this shortcut is too far from the most
Jesus.
optimal way of working, that kind of deal. So
Oh
he's
my
like a
God.
master of one thing, but he's just so obsessed about those things specifically. He's just so good at it and so obsessed, and he's
Mm-hmm.
spending every moment of his time on that specifically. That makes him super unique. So when it
Yeah.
comes to that, when it comes to like robot designs and like hard surface designs, he just stands out right away, and he will
Oh,
be the first
100%.
person to be hired, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
there's also the other, like the flip of a coin almost, right? Not everyone has the same brain. We process information and life differently based on our genetics and how we were nurtured to life, and who we were hanging out with throughout the day and who's inspiring us. Like there's just so many little things that affect the way we think and the way we work, what motivates us to do things, like guaranteed I would probably not be able to do what you're doing with every days. There's no fucking way, because my brain just doesn't operate in that way, and there's no way I could stay motivated for such a long time doing everything, doing doing something that I'm supposed to love, and it becomes a work.
Sure, sure.
It's just my brain doesn't work that way. I
Yeah.
would probably lose motivation really quick. Um, but my point is, and we kind of touch upon this as well, talking about software and what are you supposed to learn, and the idea that maybe there's a limitations that you have in terms of what is the good time to be spent on software learning, right? I look at this. I look at the jack of all trades and master of none versus like the fucking god of doing one thing. I look at it this way: if you can become this godlike person, super obsessed and perfectionist to a point where you're actually creating a standard for everyone else in terms of that one specific genre, then go for it. Otherwise, I think the way you should look at life in general is how to become a person that can learn something really quick and adapt with times. Because software changes so much. Like,
Yeah.
and now we're talking about freaking AR and VR and videos and Unity engine and fucking Unreal engine. There's just so many things going on in the industry. Like it's moving in so many different directions. It's
Yeah.
just really hard to give you one recipe, right?
Yeah.
And there are like parts of the industry that are just rapidly disappearing, right?
Sure.
Like I guess rotoscoping. I would be surprised if it's still alive. There's just so many tools that already are automating rotoscoping,
Yeah.
and obviously there's a branch of the industry that is for everyone, but there are certain branches that are just rapidly disappearing because you can have someone who, or you already have software that does it for you. You don't have to do it by hand anymore. Or like even looking at concept art, I see more and more 3D artists becoming concept artists. It's almost like merging to one sort of like this. It's not like 3D artist, concept artist, freaking environment. It's artist, digital
Yeah.
artist almost. That the lines in between specific factions of what you're supposed to do when you're hired are blurring, starting to blur. And I think they're gonna keep blurring to a point where the software and hardware will allow you to do pretty much anything you can do with your imagination, right? It's
Sure.
just gonna be your design sense and your knowledge and experience, and the tools are just gonna become easier and easier. Like the tools are so easy now, and they were like so hard before. I'm even looking at V-Ray. We've discussed V-Ray.
Oh
If
yeah.
you would pick up V-Ray 4 years ago, you would
Oh
fucking like,
God.
fuck this shit. I'm not gonna touch it with a stick.
Yeah,
Like,
I
am I
did. I
supposed
did
to
a fucking
calculate
year of V-Ray.
samples, dude?
It was fucking hard as hell because
Yeah,
it's like there's like a
exactly.
million goddamn GI settings. It's just like, okay, what does this do? No, let it render. Oh, took 5 minutes, didn't change anything. Okay, go to the next setting. What does this do? Okay,
Exactly.
that didn't do anything either.
You know how V-Ray works now? You press F9 to render. That's how it
It's
works.
nothing. Took
Yeah.
out all the like
There are
settings. But
settings
yeah,
like, okay, I want to have more clean render. I just gonna increase the rendering time, and that's
sure.
it.
Yeah.
It's already like calculating, and like the Nvidia now has this AI denoiser. Like the
Yeah.
self-learning denoising algorithm that Octane and V-Ray can use. I think right now you can only use it with specific graphics cards, but that 100% is going to change,
Oh,
and
sure.
you'll be able to use it with consumer, like a regular consumer cards. It's basically a machine learning of how to denoise your render so it looks almost like it's real time, even though it's still calculating the samples, right? So it's like learning the scene as you're working on it, and as you're changing the settings, it's learning how to optimize it so that it's not noisy. And that's making the render appear to be finished like way quicker, because you don't have to go through that progressive, like almost like a linear progression of denoising to a point where the noise on the image is so
Fine.
freaking tight and fine that you don't see it anymore, right? No,
Yeah.
it's actually interpolation. Instead of denoising pixel by pixel, it's denoising by looking at the area of the image and blurring it, and then
Yeah.
just making the brackets of those areas across the whole image. And now all it does is just learning how to make those brackets smaller and smaller as the time progresses. So it's definitely like
Yeah. No,
faster.
it's definitely ridiculous how quickly the things are progressing and how quickly things are changing. And then you look at stuff like that. You're saying, jobs being eliminated. Look at that fucking deep learn or not deep, the deep fake shit. That it's like they could take these shots that were, like the Star Wars shot that of Princess Leia or whatever that took, probably cost $500,000, and somebody could just do it on their computer with like one fucking thing in like 2 days, and it looks like pretty close. It's like, yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty much, pretty close to there. Like, and it is literally like 1 millionth of the price.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of and time and effort. So it's like I don't like stuff like that. To me is kind of like I don't know like how that shit's gonna. I can't even predict how things like the different AI things are gonna like change the industry.
Oh,
Moving
I'm
forward.
scared. I'm honestly scared. I've already seen those attempts of AI creating art from words, and I was like, holy shit! It actually reads the words. I think it was a Google's invention or maybe Facebook. I can't remember. But they made
Oh, that
like a
draws the like cats and shit like
no, no, no,
that.
no, 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 no. It doesn't draw a cat. It looks through the library of photos in
Oh,
the
okay, yeah, I
Google
think I've seen
sphere or
that.
whatever, right? And
Yeah,
reads the words and the meaning of words and learns as it goes too. It's not just something that reads. It just learns as it goes. Um, and basically creates a photo collage. It's almost similar technology with those cats. So it's kind of like it can look freakish, right?
yeah,
But it does represent what the words are saying in an image. Just an idea that in just words themselves can be translated into computer generated image without anyone's input.
yeah,
And you look at the image and you look at the words, and it's like most of the majority of the time it's like, yeah, that's exactly what the description is. It's
yeah.
like, fuck. We're fucked.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely getting pretty crazy. But that's the thing. I mean, people are gonna be able to like I look at that as like you could look at that and be like scared of that, or you could look at that and think like, oh man, the things that I could do with that in like
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years, or whatever, like maybe in 10 years or 15 years, like we as like individual artists would be able to like create like a full length feature film that looks like a fucking, $200 million Marvel movie does now. And it's like,
Yeah.
here's what I made over the
From your
last six
iPhone.
months. And
With an
yeah,
iPhone
maybe not
app.
an iPhone, but you can create something that these shots that would have cost like millions of dollars today, and in 10 years, like anybody could do that. Oh, a fucking building like just being destructed to nothing. It's like, yeah, you could do that. Like I could do that in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's just like
You're
that's
already
your like
doing that
skill
with your
set moving
shorts.
forward.
Your short films. You're already kind of doing that, because if you look back 10 years ago, you would not be able to do any of that. It would take you
No, no, yeah,
forever.
it's like it will definitely like keep moving forward. Like So I think sometimes people are. I think if as long as you're like trying to like keep up with things, which is
Mm-hmm.
tough. It's definitely hard, but I think as long as you're really trying, like there's no necessarily reason to be sort of like scared of these new technologies because they're just going to give you more possibilities for like things you can create that you just could not before.
Yeah. How do you manage assets in your library?
I put them all in the content browser of Cinema 4D so that I can literally just pull them out in one click. So it's
Yeah,
like
that's something Cinema 4D
boom,
has that
tree in the
3ds
thing.
Max should have.
That's not in 3ds Max.
No, it's annoying. It's
There's
not.
no library of like
There
models
is,
that you can make.
there is, but it's so clunky, dude. It's just like, it's like you can open like the assets library, but it's like a completely separate window. You cannot dock it at all, and
No,
it's
that's
just like
dumb.
it's not as intuitive. Like one of the things that I liked about using Cinema 4D for the time I was using it, even to a point, Modo was just like drag and drop,
Yeah.
and it's so easy because you
Yeah, no,
dock
it's
it.
just yeah, it's super easy to just be able to all organize like up, here's all the animals, here's all the insects, here's all the like kit bash stuff that I have. Here's my
Yeah,
fucking Vitali folder of craziness and and drag all that shit in and go to town. So yeah, it's definitely um super easy to just quickly populate a scene with the like pieces that you want.
yeah, 100%.
Well, and then you can
Um,
save that you can export those libraries as like lib4d files and then just take them to whatever computer and immediately just like boom, here's the entire library, everything's textured, everything's like ready to go. So you can like kind of transfer them between computers very quickly and easily too.
yeah. Are you working on any new short films, by the way?
Yeah, I'm working on a short film. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Nice.
It's still got a bit to go, but hopefully it's just I definitely have a lot of like freelance and stuff like that that's kind of slowed it down quite a bit. But yeah, it's getting there.
Awesome. I'll get
How
one
about
more.
you? How's that? Are you working on? So you're working on some like animations with the anime style stuff?
It's not there yet. Like, let's put it this way: the shader works fine with 90% of situations. It's still some of like the lighting setups that I have to do are still like limiting to a point where I need to be more careful how I set up lights and stuff. There's certain things that are annoying me with the shader, right? Like if I change the light size, it changes the. It's supposed to not change the intensity of the light the way I set it up, but it does change the way the shader reads the light. So I need to
Okay,
like I don't know. It's just like because it's like a really weird. It's not like an orthodox, shader
sure.
setups, right?
Those
Oh,
pictures you're posting, like what percentage of that is post and what percentage of that is like
it's straight from
V-Ray?
render.
Wow,
There is no
that's
post
nuts.
in it. Yeah, it's just
That
straight
is
from. The
insane.
only thing that is like you could consider like the back some of the background stuff that I have like the wall painted and whatnot. It's just like it's one of my images that I've done before. I just removed the character and just
Sure,
straighten it out as a texture and just like projected it over geometry. That's basically what it
sure.
is. But the character, the way it's shaded, the how the light works, all of those things are yeah, all of it is coming from straight from the render engine.
That's crazy.
Like all
You
the
got to
line
post more
art,
videos of
everything.
that, just of the like light moving across the like character, or just
I
like a
know. I
like.
want to do that, but there's like I want to make sure that the character is set up properly first, like with everything, so that when the light moves, it's not like 75 frames of awesomeness and then 2 frames of absolute garbage. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
like eliminate those elements. Like one of the things that I'm trying to tackle, and it's gonna be a difficult one, is like how light behaves on crevasses, and specifically some of the face structure. You have to be like really considerate in terms of how your model looks and how good of a quality it is, because that's how the light's gonna behave on it. And there are certain parts of the model that I have that are just making the light look really weird. Um, And you know, like specifically for animation, if you just set up your shots and you control the light, then you can get away with that almost like perfectly. There are things that I still want to figure out, like specifically for animation. I just don't want to do a light spinning around because that's like I've already done the test like that before, and it just works, right? I've shown it work.
Yeah.
I want to do something more, like maybe a character walking towards the camera, or turning a head and the hair is moving, like stuff like that. But for that, I need to figure out pretty much everything. The character is not even finished yet to begin with, right?
Sure, sure.
I still have to
Is
finish
that
the character, so
was that character from Daz or from
yeah, it's Daz.
like base from Daz?
It's a simple setup. It's a Daz character. Like I've set it up so that you basically can import the Daz character. I'm using the Genesis 8 characters, and you just
What do
drop
you
a
use for the
shader.
hair?
So hair specifically, the early tests that I did were um, with just like a regular, like whatever I found in the store from Daz
In
3D.
Daz?
Yeah, yeah. I just like plug it in and added like random shit, like not random. I made a shader specifically so it looks like hair, but it's really hard to control the highlights to make them look proper. So you
Gotcha.
have to be really more careful on how you set it up, especially if you want to have that, jagged fucking reflection look. Like you can have it in the model, obviously, but you need to make like a really fucking good model of that to begin with in order for it to behave properly. Or you can make
Sure.
like an in-between blend where it's the way the textures are projected and the model is behaving, and then how all those things together react to light, that will make it look realistic or not, right? So those things
Gotcha.
just
So
take
you
time to
usually
set up.
export the hair out of Daz.
Yeah, yeah, but like the
Okay.
newest one, the way I actually did not use Daz here, like the newest one I posted, it's
Okay.
actually I made hair in ZBrush with the fiber mesh.
Okay. I've never done that.
It's really simple. Like
Is it?
it's time consuming, but it's really simple, and you can get really good results. Like if you want to do, it's much easier to do to do realistic hair with it because it's more forgiving in terms of like how many fibers you have to deal with. Like especially if you're like combing the hair and like styling it, and some of the hairs are like sticking out, like oh this is a flyaway hair. It's like you don't even care. But I'm doing it so that it looks like cards, right? And if it looks
Sure.
like
So
cards,
wait,
I
when you
cannot have.
export it when you export it out of ZBrush,
It's OBJ.
is it's what?
It's a OBJ, so just a regular mesh.
With like a shit ton of hair?
So the one I have is like 8,000 polygons right now. I think the hair that
Oh,
I
that's
have.
it?
I think so, yeah, because it's just like literally, it's just literally cards. It's just like strips of polygons, and that's it. It's
Okay.
not really that dense mesh. It's just like a plane with few subdivisions. That's it. And there's maybe like 1,000 of or 500 of those on the
Oh, so it's a
character.
bunch. Oh, so it's like it's each card is like 1,000 hairs or something like that.
E- e- yes and
E-
no. So like so if you would do it like a regular hair, if you would want to do it like with the hair plugin or something, right? Then what you
Yeah.
do is like you export from ZBrush, you export as curves, and then you have like curves that are shaping your hair design, and then you can use,
Okay,
and the
I see.
plugin itself, you can, most of the plugins can read the curves and actually style the hair automatically to those curves, and then you
I
just
see.
tweak it and then it works, right?
I see. I
But I
see.
don't do it that way because that's not how anime hair looks like at all, right? It looks
Sure.
more like
Yeah.
really low poly. So I'm using more of
Yeah.
like a video game design approach where you're shaping the hair to look like a video game hair. And if you shape it correctly and you work with the textures correctly and make the shader behave correctly, then it will look like a manga stuff. So that's my
Gotcha.
goal. I like the next thing I want to do is like create sets of bones that are attached to head that are reacting to wind and gravity and all that shit, so that then what do you do, like normally in the video games you take a bone, you have like a bone structure, for like a clump of hairs. So let's say the hair bangs, you would have like 2 bones or 3 bones depending on how complex you want to have the animation, and then you attach those cards to it, and then they move. They're like skinned together so that when the bone moves, the cards are moving as well. That's how it works in principle. I need to learn that, and it's not that hard to set up, but it's just like I need to make it happen. And then when I have that and can have like a little wind and or maybe just like the hair reacting to the movement or the bones reacting to the movement and then the hair reacting to the movement, that's when I'm gonna do like a little short animation where like 50 frames or 3 seconds of a character walking or turning a head and the hair is reacting. Because last thing I want to do is like turning a head and the fucking everything looks stiff as shit.
Sure. Yeah, it's
So
definitely tough because it's like yeah, it's like a mix between it not looking too stiff, but it's also like, yeah, anime, it is kind of stiff. It looks like they like hairsprayed the shit out of their hair.
yeah, exactly. In
So
a
it's
way,
not like super flowing, but it's also
depends
not
on what
like
anime
not
you're
like a
looking
fucking
at.
helmet.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to do is like I want to make this thing look like a 90s anime, but like my own, like not specifically. Oh, this is exactly like fucking Ghost in the Shell, right? Yes and no. Like the some of the traits of it in terms of like how it feels, yes, but how it's designed, not necessarily. So
Well,
I
it's kind
look at
of.
it as
I
a
mean,
reference,
it's
not as a blueprint.
inherently it's inherently going to be different than Ghost in the Shell because it's using different tools, and it's like Ghost in the Shell was animated by like a shit ton of people, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's just
This
me.
is you one person, like, so even if you just made something that was literally looked exactly like Ghost in the Shell, it's like, look, now like literally one person can make something that looks exactly like that. That
Yeah,
to me would be fucking sweet.
it's getting there. I mean, I could technically set up my character to a way to almost mimic one of the scenes, and in the still, it would be obviously faster. In animation, it would take much more time, especially because I'd never animated a damn thing. So that's
Sure.
gonna be a challenge.
That's freaking sweet, though. It definitely is looking like so fucking good. Like
Yeah,
it
but it's moving the
looks
needle
so
for
dead
me.
on the like textures and the like lighting and stuff. It
Thanks,
looks
man.
like super fucking good.
I'm trying to push the envelope. And
It's
I
so good.
appreciate all the comments that I'm getting from peeps when I'm posting that. But some of them are like, you should add more this, or like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I feel like you
Yeah,
definitely know what you're doing because you got that far, so it's
yeah,
like you know where it needs to go from there too.
yeah. I have a road plan to what to do with it. Although honestly, I mean, I already had a couple of suggestions, and it's it's something that I had in mind to test, but I was like, yeah, I don't know if it's gonna work. And then someone suggested it, and like, it actually does. You know what I mean? So, like this guy posted in my Facebook thread, um, saying that I should try the look at constraints for eyes, so that I could control the reflections with like a single node, right? So what I
Mm-hmm.
did with that specifically, I created like like you have the eyeball. I basically inflated the eyeball to create like a new mesh and made it completely transparent in the material, and then just added
Mm-hmm.
those little light spots, right? Just literally fucking little circles in texture,
Okay.
and made so that the eyeball itself is looking at a dummy somewhere in the scene, and as you move the dummy, the eyes are rotating. So therefore, the texture is rotating as well because it's just mapped on it. And that's basically how the eye reflections work. So they're independent to the light because like the light can move around, but you always want to kind of keep the reflection in the eyes. So I want to have it
Sure.
independent. And before I had it so that you would have to adjust the texture position in the material, which
I
was a good
see.
way of doing that. But that's much easier where you have like an actual like actual node that can move around. You just basically grab it and move around the scene, and it's updating the reflection position. So that's
That's crazy.
I can't remember who suggested doing that. But whoever did, I really appreciate that suggestion. It was really good, right? So
Yeah, it's
definitely
crazy how
technical
much
stuff like
little
that.
like tricks you have to have like that to achieve that look in
Yeah,
3D.
definitely. The funny part, and I think that's the major part of this is like, even though I'm doing it as a personal work, I've learned so much about how the different nodes in the shader behaves. And now for like the regular work that I'm doing with clients, I'm using that, and it's just saving me shit all the time. So
Yeah, dude, for
it's really
sure.
good.
Well, keep jamming on it.
I will, man. All right, let's wrap it up. I've been bugging you for a little longer than I normally do.
No,
So
dude, it's definitely been sweet to catch up. I feel like I should have my own podcast because I have like a million questions to ask you about all kinds of like movie stuff and
dude,
stuff that's actually cool and not stupid
let's do
every
another
day.
one soon then. I mean, look, I don't treat my and I know I ask you questions and almost sometimes feels like in an interview. And sometimes I get those comments like, "Fucking Mache, he's talking too much. Like, let the guest talk. Like, fuck off. Yeah, you don't have to listen to it
No,
if you
like
don't want
I
to."
honestly have like
The
the
way
thing
I
is
look at
like
it, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I already like know all the shit about me, so it's kind of like
The way I look
it's
at it is like, hey, I'm actually hanging out with friends and having a conversation. I'm not conducting an interview. That's how I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
keep
no.
it too. So,
Yeah, definitely.
dude,
But
if you
there's
want to,
definitely a lot of stuff that I would like to like. I don't know. I just
let's
have
do
so many
another one.
questions.
Let's just do another one, and you're gonna interview me, or we're gonna just
Yeah,
talk.
let's do that. Let's
Let's do
do like
that.
a couple weeks from now. We'll do another one where
Fuck
I
yeah,
am
dude.
turning it
I'm totally down.
cafe art.
Cafe. Oh my god.
We'll just switch the words around.
I see what you did there, dude. All right, man. Let's wrap it up. I gotta get back to work. I'm pretty sure you're gonna have some work to do too.
For sure, dude.
I'll bug you so we can catch up and do another one and
Yeah,
maybe
dude.
just
Let's
turn it
do it.
around. Fuck yeah.
Yep.
All right,
I'll
guys.
get my list of questions.
Thanks for joining. I hope I didn't answer all the questions well, I mean, there were quite a few questions that I just didn't have time to answer. But yeah, just keep asking, and I'll try to address them whenever I can, whenever time permits. And yeah, someone asked if there's gonna be more streams. Definitely, definitely more guests coming up, and I'll obviously do another one with Beeple. So we'll do that. All right, guys, take care and have fun. Have a fun rest of the week, and yeah, till the next time.